Hello, everybody. Welcome to Popcorn Planet. I am Andy Signor, and this is a fun one. I found this on Heat Vision on Hollywood Reporter. It really seems like it might be the first movie fight on television, and I just loved this. I wanted to watch it with you because this clip goes back to the 80s to when Empire Strikes Back came out. And it's like the old heyday of movie fights. It's just like the old heyday of then, but before that, of three smart critics going toe-to-toe to argue, is Empire Strikes Back cinema? And to watch them in the time period do it, I just couldn't help but watch it with you, and I want to judge it. I want to judge this fight, this nerd war, as I call them here on my channel. I want to judge this nerd war here, and an original movie fight, if you will, before any of us were movie fighting or nerd warring. I thought it'd be very fun. The fighters in this are John Simon, who's a critic for the New Yorker, I believe it was, and then Roger Ebert, Gene Siskel, two of my heroes. It's going to be hard to not be biased towards them. But I'm going to listen intently with you. Let's watch this. Because I started watching it on my own. I thought, no. Let's do a live watch reaction and let's actually judge this. You will judge this with me at home. The original movie fights. It's so timely and perfect to the debate right now because so many people are calling Marvel movies not cinema. So here we get to watch a critic poo-pooing on Star Wars and Empire Strikes Back, how it's bad for children. It's dumbing them down. It's bad cinema. Let's watch this because now we can really, in hindsight, consider it all and see who's right. So let's do this together. So I'm excited. Watch this with me. We're going to judge it together. Here we go. Ted Kopel is the judge here, and he's going to do a fantastic job. Keeps it very straight. I'm taking notes too. But let's watch this together and see where we stand. Here we go.
Mr. Simon, you described The Empire Strikes Back, the second in this trilogy, as malodorous offal, and I understand you're also well able to keep your enthusiasm in check for the third in the trilogy. Why so unkind?
Well, I think the raves for the early Star Wars have been so violent and so extravagant that I feel one cannot afford to mince one's words if one dislikes these things.
You certainly did not do that, but why do you feel they are so bad?
I feel they're so bad because they're completely dehumanizing. Obviously, let's face it, they are for children or for childish adults. They're not for adult mentalities. Which unfortunately means that they're not for a lot of my fellow critics who also lack adult mentalities. But anyway, they are for children, and they're brutalizing children, they're stultifying children, they're making children dumber than they need to be. A great work for children, like Huck Finn, for example, tells a child something about reality, about people, about life, about growing up. These films try to keep children, stupid children, forever. And that, I think, is wrong.
Gene Siskel, Roger Ebert, if you would like to remove the dagger from between your ribs and strike back, have at it.
I totally disagree with Mr. Simon. I don't know what he did as a child, but I spent a lot of my Saturday matinees watching science fiction movies and serials and having a great time of being stimulated and having my imagination stimulated and having all sorts of visions take place in my mind that helped me to become an adult and to still say young at heart. And I would say not that I'm childlike, but that he is old at heart.
Yeah, I think that Mr. Simon ought to do what I did over the weekend. I went to a regular movie theater in a shopping center in Michigan City, Indiana, and I sat amid all the kids. There was one tall head and a lot of small heads.
Were they dumber than they needed to be?
No, they weren't dumber, to quote that interesting phrase. They were ecstatic. They were enjoying it, and they were rooting. They were asking each other who's who. They were getting all involved. They were rooting for the right guys and booing the bad guys. I thought it was a lot of fun. I feel badly, honestly, I feel badly that this other critic, John Simon, didn't have a good time at these pictures. That's too bad for him.
All right, while it would probably be more fun to have you sling mud at one another, all three of you, let's talk about the movie.
Let's get into it.
Is it a great film? I mean, it's clearly great technology, and it does wonderful things with special effects. But in terms of the normal standards by which we judge movies, is this a great film? John Simon, clearly you say no, but why?
Well, first of all, you know, special effects are like the tail of the dog, which should not wag the whole animal. When you have a film that's 90% special, and that's a kindly estimate, 90% special effects, you might just as well be watching a animated cartoon, because finally all those special effects begin to look totally unreal. You're looking for something that looks like flesh and blood there. You have 3 lousy actors in the main roles who don't contribute much flesh and blood. You have ghastly dialogue, terrible plotting, miserable characterization, which also do not contribute flesh and blood. So what you're left with is something that Walt Disney could have done just as well with a drawing board and pencils and colors.
All right, Roger Ebert, beyond the undeniable fact that it's clearly perceived as entertainment by a great many people, how would you argue that it's a great movie?
These are the sorts of movies that Disney people should be making, and the kinds of movies that Disney made 20, 30 years ago. I think all movies are special effects. Movies are not real. They're two-dimensional. A film goes through the camera, the projector throws the light on the screen, and that makes a special effect. It's a dream. It's an imagination. As to whether this film is good or not, it excited me. It made me laugh. It made me thrilled. And that's what a movie like this is for. I also enjoy films by Ingmar Bergman and people like that. I share that taste with Mr. Simon. But I think, in my own movie-going taste to be broad enough to also understand why a bunch of people might want to get together and see a Star Wars movie and enjoy it.
Gene Siskel, is it not possible to separate these two and to say, yes, there's such a thing as great entertainment, but it's not a great movie. Let's not pretend it is.
Well, you can say what its aspirations are. I don't think that a film should be rewarded for aiming low and hitting that mark, which sometimes in film criticism you do get that, the sort of junk movie as campy fun. I don't think this is campy fun. I think this is well-made fun. This is very good of its kind, and I want to cite another film that's out now that shows you what this kind of film can be like if it's junk, and that's Space Hunter, Adventures in the Forbidden Zone, shot in 3D. That movie is 3D and supposed to be kind of special. The Jedi film is in 2D, and it's a lot more exciting. Just seeing those pictures back to back as I did over the last week, one clearly is better of its kind. I think Jedi is very good of its kind. What do kids have these days for entertainment? They have the Black Stallion picture, which I know we both liked. I don't know if Mr. Simon did. And you have the Star Wars films, and that's about it, not much more. This is very good of its kind.
Mr. Simon, have you ever sunk as low as Space Hunter?
No, I'm happy to say I haven't. I think there are wonderful things that you could take kids to. There's a little film called Tender Mercies, which is not a children's movie,
Yeah,
but in which a child is one of the main characters. And that is the sort of thing that I would take my children if I had them, where they can see something about human beings, about life. In this thing, you see one set of robots, some of them ostensibly flesh and blood, but actually just as mechanical as the real robots, attacking another set of robots. It zaps you, it races past you, projectiles are hurtling this way and that. There's nothing to get involved with. Sure, there is a very primitive sense in which the Empire is bad and a very primitive sense in which the others are good. But it is all such a chaos, such a jumble, such a confusion, such a mechanical, technological, whirligig that you don't have any chance to associate yourself with anyone, to identify yourself with anyone. There are no people there with whom you can sympathize.
That just isn't my experience in seeing it, again, with a whole bunch of kids. They were able to sort out who was who very easily. They had no trouble with this picture, understanding what was going on. I got to ask Mr. Simon a question. Here's sort of a test question. Wasn't your heart warmed even a little bit by Yoda?
I'll tell you what, we're in a bit of a tough technical situation here because Mr. Simon just lost his earpiece.
Man.
But if you can hear us again now,
I can
Mr.
hear you.
Simon,
Yes, I heard the question.
You were asked whether your heart wasn't warmed a little by Yoda.
Well, yes, I mean a little. But let's say if I saw him in a window of F.A.O. Schwartz and I looked at him for 3 seconds and said, that's a kind of cute little figurine, I would have had enough of Yoda.
Listen, 3 seconds of acceptance on your part, Mr. Simon, is all that we can hope for and all that we have time for, I'm afraid, at this point. I thank you and Gene Siskel.
I could have
and
watched
also
that for
Roger Ebert
hours.
for joining us.
That was fantastic. So there you have it. So, I mean, based off of the arguments, I got to side with Siskel and Ebert. I thought John Simon there was getting he was taking it too personally. He wasn't thinking broadly, which Ebert and Siskel were. And it was all about him. And, this is, I don't find anything human in it. Like, clearly the kids did, as Siskel and Ebert said. And clearly so did Siskel and Ebert. They admitted it. And when they sort of pointed out that Yoda warmed his heart, then clearly something fake warmed his heart. And I think he begrudgingly had to agree. So I think it's interesting. Well, to correct, though, it looks like this wasn't about Empire. This was, well, he's calling them all out, but this was clearly Return of the Jedi. Because judging by the years, which as they were talking about the other films that came out, Tender Mercies, odd kids film to take your kids to. I don't know how popular it'd be. I mean, I understand what he's trying to get at, but yeah, it's Robert Duvall. He's like a country singer finding a new wife. It's not a kids movie, but. This was 1983 when this was all going down. And that and the Space Hunter, the funny pull for, I got to give Gene the point there for that Space Hunter call out of proving that, yes, you can do campy, crappy robot action that means nothing. Whereas Star Wars actually is a actually well-made fun is, I think, what separates the film. And I think that ultimately is what allows it to be called cinema. And when audiences are so thrilled and excited by it, they're allowed to be. Now, so Return of the Jedi isn't the best of the three by any means. So I can understand why some, at that point, certain people are losing interest. But I think overall, it's very fascinating to see the critics 3 Star Wars movies in get fed up and just be like, enough already. This and part of it, knowing in the context that it's Jedi, part of it I could see his argument of I wish he'd mentioned the Ewoks and stuff. It's just toy commercials, but he didn't get into that. He just talked about how it's all dumbing down kids. There's no flesh and blood, nothing relatable for the audience. I think Siskel and Ebert, they did their job and fighting back and proving that there is more to it than John Simon was giving. So I got to give them the point. They get it. They win this edition. Oh, God, I miss Siskel and Ebert so much. They were fantastic critics. You can find some of their stuff on YouTube. You should go back and watch. My God, they were real, true, the best critics I think there were, and none of us would be here on YouTube talking movies without those two. They made it a thing. They inspired. I still get, and thank you, people who are inspired by me and the work I've done over the years, and many of my colleagues and friends out there that you were inspired by us. I'm telling you, we wouldn't be here without Siskel and Ebert. So I love Siskel and Ebert. They are awesome, and man, that would have been a good, real movie fight someday if I'd been able to do that with them. Oh my God, that would have been the best. I got to meet Ebert once. And it was and Siskel in a separate time, but I was always more of an Ebert guy. I related more to Ebert, he signed Ebert's Book of Cinema for me, and I keep that safe somewhere else. But anyway, a huge fan. You guys should look him up on YouTube. That was a lot of fun to watch. Speaking of which, for those that keep hitting me up and saying, Andy, where's Nerd Wars? I miss you judging, yada yada yada. It's coming. It's coming very, very soon. And you can help. In fact, you can help. I'm going to put it up here as I'm talking to you. Go to patreon.com/Andy Signor. I'm announcing, I'll be doing another official, but since this was such a related topic, I thought it's fitting to sort of start teasing this now. If you go to patreon.com, Andy Signor, look me up on Patreon. That's spelled this, there it is, Patreon. There you can see it all. Patreon.com. You can see the full tiers that I do, but there's a specific tier. If you go look around, you got to click which tier you're going to do. If you go to the $10 per month tier, you can be involved in upcoming editions of Nerd Wars that I am taping. When I did my Hugging the Cactus Kickstarter, there were people who bought in placement, and I have a few others who've earned their placement, and I have a few spots left, and some of you will get the chance to audition and be a part of it. So if you've ever wanted to have me judge and be part of Nerd Wars, it's coming back very soon. Special stuff coming. I'm excited about it. So stay tuned. Check out the Patreon and check out the Nerd Warrior level over on Patreon so you can learn more, and so you can be a part if you want for a smaller dollar amount per month. You can get involved and be part of this show as it comes back. So thank you to all you people who've been asking for it and sticking by me and watching. Be sure to subscribe. Obviously, as always, hit me up on social media at Andy Signor if you have any questions. Instagram, trying to get those numbers up so I can unlock some features. So please, if you get Instagram, follow me at Andy Signor. And thank you so much for watching. More videos will be dropping soon, so stay tuned. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.